Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains in Missouri, USA. Well, today we've got a couple of Casio FX-841P pocket computers that were sent in for repair all the way from England. So we have a Japanese domestic model pocket computer made its way to England, and now it's all the way in the United States for repair. Both of these have display issues, but they're different sorts of display issues. I stuck some labels on here so I could keep them, tell them apart. Number 2 here has lines through the display, so the display ribbon probably needs resealed, and we'll try to do that. And number 1 here has a very light display, so I'm guessing that the capacitors here need to be replaced. So we'll see how that goes. Without further ado, let's get started. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. They not only do PCBs and flex PCBs, they also have 3D printing service, injection molding service. They do CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication. They also have a thriving maker community where you can share projects and check out what other people are doing. For your next project, head on over to PCBWay. Okay, I've got our number 2 unit here with batteries in it. I'm starting with number 2 because this happens to be the first one I put batteries in. To make it easier for you to see, I've got the contrast cranked all the way up and it's tilted at an angle. You can kind of see here there's some missing lines on the display, so these are going to be common. And if I press in just the right place, you can see some of those lines come and go. So if I type on here, you can see there's parts of the numbers missing. See there? Yeah. So we'll take this apart and see if we can reseal the ribbon going to the LCD. I have been somewhat successful with that. Now I got this set of Japanese screwdrivers. They are JIS, which is a Japanese variation of Phillips. The Phillips bit, when they were designed, were good for factory use. They're a lot faster than flatheads, but it was easy to strip out the heads or to over torque them because they didn't have the nice torque limiting drivers that we have now. So they made the heads so if you try to over torque it, the bit cammed out. Solved a problem they had then. Now we don't want it to do that and cause other problems. And the JIS and Posidrive are both variations of Phillips that don't do that cam out thing. And a friend of mine suggested I try some JIS screwdrivers for these pocket computers, and they do seem to fit better. Okay, so we got the batteries out. This has a memory battery. It's a memory backup and the batteries it runs on. So you can change the batteries it runs on without losing your programs, or you can leave the main batteries in and change the memory backup battery. This has a lot of screws through the back cover here. So I'm going to start and lay these out in the order I took them out of. Guess we'll go anti-clockwise around here. Of course, in the US we say counterclockwise, but since a chap in England sent this in, we'll use the UK vernacular. So far, these are all the same, which is awfully convenient. Okay, there we go. All the screws are the same. And that does look to be every one of them in there. That's a bunch. If I'm going to have something apart temporarily like this, I find the back cover is a convenient place to store screws and such. And okay. Yeah, there we've got our speaker wires. There are 3 caps in here. And here is, oops, you can hardly see that. There's our display ribbon. It's probably causing the problem. So I'm going to have to put a different tip in the soldering iron to desolder the speaker wires. I elected to leave the tip I had in the soldering iron there. And just use the desoldering tool for this if I can get a hold of these little spindly speaker wires. All right, now we can set that to the side. It looks like there's just one screw here. Now, like a lot of these other models, it has some jumper pads in here for some reason. Maybe they come with different amounts of memory, so that's how some of the other ones are. Okay, so if we take this one screw out here, that's a little flathead about 3 millimeters long. Okay. Gotta be careful here. It's wanting to pull the... Oh, I see. This wire right here is a copper sheet that goes through the keyboard membrane. Okay, so we'll have to desolder him as well. You always have to move cautiously the first time you take one apart. Okay. And the LCD is under this keypad membrane. And there are a couple screws there, so I think we can pull that protective sheet out of there. There's a couple other flathead screws, but we need a smaller driver for that. Oh no, there's another plastic sheet in there. Goodness. Okay, so we've got to take the actual membrane out too. And then we can get to these screws. That's a little bit tricky. And I just dropped that screw on the mat somewhere. Oh, nope, I dropped it right in there. That is a smaller screw, only about 2 millimeters long. Don't want to lose these guys. Okay. Put those in there. And kind of pull that out of there like that. Okay. Set the case over to the side. Now, this is our LCD. It's got this really thin ribbon cable type thing here. And generally these are glued to the circuit board. It's a special type of tape that acts like a zebra strip. And the rest of this LCD is encased in some aluminum here, and I'm not sure if that can be taken apart. No, I think that's permanently stuck together with some glue or something. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not sure how this is going to work. I'm going to pull the LCD like this. And I have a special tip on my soldering iron. It's got a little silicone end, and it's made for sealing this type of tape. Previously, when I've done this on other pocket computers, I have, oh gosh, that looks completely unstuck. Yeah, it's like completely peeling off. Ugh. I put some cap tan tape over it and set my iron to about 200 degrees with a wide tip. I've had this special tip for this on hand for a while now. Somebody on Twitter suggested it, but I haven't had the chance to use it, so we will give it a shot. I rigged up a test here. I tested the wired soldering iron tip through the cap tan tape onto a thermocouple, and then I did the same thing with this tip and without the tape. With the wide soldering iron tip, the thermocouple got up to about 100C in about a second, and this will get up to about 70C in about 5 seconds. But you're pushing over a lot wider areas, so you need to push a little longer. That doesn't feel like it's really sticking down. That has me a little bit flummoxed. So I wonder if they just lined that up and they put the tape on there, intended to be a compression fit. Oh gosh, don't do that, Jeffrey. Because that is not tight down there at all. And I don't think trying to seal it down there did anything. It's just rebounding. And the tape has a very rounded appearance. It wraps around the board, so I don't think they would get a nice crease on that. Okay, now I really don't know what to think about the way this is designed. It's very strange. Because I can see, looking in this way, that the contacts on the border on the top, they're not on the back here. So perhaps they just made that a compression fit. I don't know. We'll see if we can get it to work somehow with the case mostly off and see what happens. I'll get this kind of reassembled and then we'll start up again. I have the unit rather precariously reassembled. I tacked on some leads so I could connect it to a bench power supply. I'll try to get the LCD at an angle where you can see it. I've got the contrast way up. If I press on this corner, I can get all the display to come back on. I don't know if there was an adhesive there originally. I'm guessing so, but it's all broken down. That sort of tape is hard to get. It's expensive. You know, like a 10-meter roll might be $300, that sort of expensive. And then you have the problem if you've got hundreds of connections, and how do you make sure you get them all lined up, because you have one shot to do it. So I think what I'll do is build this up under the plastic back cover so the back cover presses on it, and hopefully that'll allow it to work for some time into the future. I'll get my tacked on wires off of here, and then we'll try building this up and putting a few more screws in it and seeing how that goes. I've got to keep my thumb and finger on it like this to keep the keys from falling out of this end, because there's only one screw that goes through the board on its own. Okay, I've got it ready to reassemble. I did solder on that wire from the keyboard, and I've got the buzzer wires soldered on. There were two 15 microfarad capacitors here in parallel. They're part of the power supply filtering the output of the linear regulator here. I replaced that with a single 33 microfarad capacitor because that's what I had. This 1 microfarad capacitor is used as part of the reset circuit. It's just a time delay. It's not critical. It is fine for right now, so I'm just going to leave it. And I stuck some about 4.8 to 5 millimeter self-adhesive foam right here. And I hope that's going to be about the right thickness to compress and make a solid connection. We shall see. So it took about 3 times of taking it apart and putting it back together to get all the different layers of the keyboard aligned right. I'm not sure what was wrong, but something was wrong. The LCD looks pretty good on camera now. In person, you can see that the rows that were completely missing before look kind of sad. See, it shows up okay on camera, but they're kind of light in person. I think maybe it was run long enough with those rows not connected properly that it damaged the LCD. That can happen. But it's better when you're looking at it at an angle like it would be on the desk. In person, it's usable. It's not perfect. It's a pretty crappy fix, to be honest with you, but it is better. Yeah, if I squeeze it a little more, it gets a little darker down on this rows. Let me show you what else I had to do besides the foam. Inside, I put one piece on top of the plastic plate. Again, it's really a bodge. I don't like doing that, but there's no real good way of properly fixing an LCD. So there's just another piece of foam there. Maybe I can put a second one there just to add a little more pressure. And I'll see if I have some new screws for these. These tend to get chewed up because people don't have exactly the right screwdriver for that. But I think we can call this one sufficiently bodged, and we'll move on to the second one. This is unit number 1. This might be a little difficult to get across on camera. This is with contrast all the way up. And in person, it's really, really, really dim. All the segments are there, but it's pretty sad. Really, there's not much to the power supply on these. There's these 2 big caps. So I'll do the same thing we did on the other one. I'll replace one of them with the 33 microfarad, and we'll see if that helps. Other than that, it's down to the LCD, which, as we know, we can't do much about. Okay, this is something else the owner mentioned, that speaker wires came off. I'll go ahead and get the solder off of there. Typically, it's not really easy to get the wires to stick back on the speaker itself. Okay, maybe hope yet. And I'll pull these off one at a time. Actually, this one looks fine. The ESR is low. The capacitance is okay. Sometimes when these capacitors start leaking, when you measure it, it'll measure a higher capacitance because it's taking longer to charge up because it's leaking. Okay, so we'll yeah, about the same. It seems okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and put a new cap on there just to see. We'll put 6 volts into it by the external power supply, measure the voltage output, and see if that looks okay. And there's really not much else to it. It just goes to the display drivers. There's a voltage divider here, and it goes to the display drivers. There's not much else to it. If I had a suitable surface mount electrolytic capacitor, I would use that, but I don't. New capacitor, and tap on our power supply. Alright, you're going to hear the power supply noise now. Got it set to 6 volts, 20 milliamp current limit because that's the lowest I can go. I need to hold this corner of the keyboard. We'll turn it on. And don't think that's any better. It looks a little better on camera. Let me look at this person. No, it's still pretty gray. That didn't really help at all. Okay, so got my bench multimeter here. Of course, you can't see it. And let's see. So our voltage input, I'll inset the readings on the screen now. Voltage input is oops, my leads the right way around here. Voltage input 6 volts. Okay. Now, voltage across the cap is 5 volts, 4.92. That's just fine. Yeah, pot seems to work fine. And that's our voltage divider there for the LCD, and there's nothing else to it. So in the case of this guy, I think we improved it marginally with the new capacitor. Now this one I did not see in the schematic. But he is not in line with the LCD driver. Oh, I think it's for the power. .8. I think that is for smoothing out here. It's kind of hard telling where that goes, but this is in this area. They would run the power from here down to here, back up to here, since the voltage dividers are right here. Okay. Well, this is kind of a disappointment. Now, we made a slight improvement on this one, and the other one we kind of patched back together. There's no really good fix for either of them. And then we might get the speaker connected back on this one. That's disappointing. After looking at the schematic again, I realized that this 1 microfarad capacitor is indeed to the LCD, so this one must be for the reset. Or it might be for here, and this uses a different sort of reset. On a lot of these pocket computers, the reset switch is just a switch that discharges a capacitor, and that means you need to have it held in, the switch held in for long enough time to decharge the cap, or discharge the cap. Prevents you from accidentally resetting it. Okay. So let's measure this capacitor just for grins. Oh, you can't see that. Well, it's right at 1 microfarad. ESR might be a little high, but then it's a teeny tiny cap. Let me see what I got that'll go in there. I found a 1 microfarad 35 volt capacitor in my junk box. Kind of wonder if this is what they had intended for this anyhow, because of the outline. And then let's see, if positive is like this, I want them to go like that, and then like that. Okay, and we need to go like this a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty close. I don't have high hopes that this is going to make it any better, but the fella shipped it all the way here from England, so I'm going to do everything I can. Nope, that didn't really improve it. I mean, it looks okay on camera. In person, it's mighty light, even with the contrast all the way up. And there's just nothing else in that circuit. You've got the voltage divider, and that goes to the display driver chips. And then you have the LCD. So there's just nothing left to fix, unfortunately. That makes me sad. Well, I confess myself to be a bit disappointed that we didn't make any more progress on these two Casio FX-841 pocket computers. Number 2 here that had the lines through the LCD, we kind of got those taken care of. It's quite the bodge though, but it is better than it was before, and it's dark enough that you can use it. I do think there was some permanent LCD damage there, and without a viable option for actually getting that correct conductive adhesive tape, and trying to do that again and trying to get it all aligned, it's just not really a practical thing. The number 1 unit that had the dim LCD still has a dim LCD. We did what we could. We replaced the capacitors in the power supply section, and there's really nothing else in there. It may have made a slight improvement, but it's not much. Otherwise, it's fully functional. It just has a really dim LCD. But that's what happens sometimes. You know, there's always the thought when you're working on something and it doesn't go right, it doesn't wind up being a good repair, and you've spent all this time on it and you've made a video, you're like, oh, do I want to show this video to people? But the reality is, things don't always go right, and you don't always fix everything, and sometimes you're pretty disappointed with the outcome. This fella spent a lot of money to ship these over to me from England, and there's not much that I did for him. The one's a little better, the lines are gone, but that number one still has a dim LCD. So maybe better luck next time. But anyhow, I hope you found this useful. The thing with these little pocket computers are troubleshooting them is the same as bigger systems. It's just harder to work on. It's smaller, and sometimes there's a lot less information available about them. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in that comment section down there below. I would appreciate hearing from you. Thanks to everyone who helped support the channel through Patreon and other means. That's greatly appreciated. You guys are keeping this channel going. And if you want some more information about maybe how to do that, just look in the description down below. There's some links and such. You can always shoot me an email. Well, until next time, bye.